Greetings, everyone, and welcome back to the TFT Perspective. Views, breaking news coming from the US. Mr. Adani, the multi billionaire Indian tycoon, has been indicted in a US district court inside Brooklyn about embezzlement and fraud as well as bribery. The allegations have been ongoing for a very long time. The investigations have been almost concluded. The indictment is basically about the big figure, which is that around more than $250 million were spent by the Adani Group as bribery in case of lobbying firms, especially to gain foreign capital from outside in order to invest in the solar energy program inside India. All of these investigations were done since 2020 during the COVID times. Now they have concluded in late 2024. I'm just going to read out exactly what the verdict is all about so you can grasp on it and build a perception concerning that. Number one is that over $250 million in bribes promised to the Indian government officials for solar energy contracts. This is the main allegation. Then Mr. Adani and associates lied about bribery scheme while seeking capital from international investors. Between 2020 and 2024, defendants agreed to pay bribes to Indian government officials to secure contracts, and that there is also evidence, as per the U.S. attorney, that Mr. Adani himself met an Indian official and talked about mentioned bribery schemes. Previously, we also discussed the Hindenburg report, which is famous for basically breaking Mr. Adani's business empire. There was a huge stock decline at that time as well when it came to Adani and associates. They found out that the Adani Group was involved in huge level of money laundering all across the globe, with infamous, I would say, different franchises being opened up, offshore accounts, offshore companies being opened up around across the world. And they kept on changing financial advisors, while at home the Indian Security Exchange Company never investigated the charges. They completely broke down the Hindenburg report as a conspiracy to downplay Indian investors and Indian businessmen, or somehow conspiracies that US is very much against India. Now these allegations, we have with us Mr. Bakar K. Korbi to discuss this issue. Sir, previously, just yesterday, Mr. Adani also tweeted that the new emerging President-elect Donald Trump, thankful we can work together. He said that India is ready to invest, that our group is ready to invest at around $10 billion inside that. And now this has come up. It seems like for India, whether it be what's happening inside Canada, accusations of targeting Sikh separatists inside Canada, and now this, what do you see is happening to Indian billionaires right now?
I think one is, of course, what the Indian media may be projecting. I think we'll discuss it, sazish or conspiracy theory. But that is how I think corporate India has worked, actually.
Mm-hmm.
What has happened that especially RSS and BJP was able to befriend, and this started right when Mr. Modi was Chief Minister of Gujarat. And when Gujarat massacre also took place, in earlier part of this century. And there he developed, mainly with the Gujarati businessmen. If you look at Ambani, the Adanis, and some of other conglomerates, they are from Gujarat. They are good businessmen. I will not say that. They have good business sense. But somehow the corporate India and RSS and BJP got together in one bed. And they have been, I think, maybe bankrolling Mr. Modi's election campaign. They projected him from Butcher of Gujarat to a statesperson, which everybody likes. And then they brought him in the center of power as Prime Minister. So there were a lot of role played by the corporate India. On the other side, then Modi had to return the favors, and then we have all these reports coming. And we'll also discuss what's, let's say, opposition talking about. I'll start with the Hindenburg report. And I think an investigative report was done by our colleague Adila Noreen on 29 January 2023. And I would like the audience to, read it. They can Google it on The Nation, Pakistani English newspaper. Now, this was, there is a complete summary given what happened in the Hindenburg report. So it means that these are the ways and means the corporate India applies. So maybe Adani is just one case which has come out, but that is how corporate India operates. We know there is FATF, and India is one of the major actors of FATF, big players in Oceania and in the let's say Asia Pacific region. But nobody, from FATF has been bothered to see how money was laundered. Now, Hindenburg investigation, as a private enterprise, investigates, mainly focus on forensic financial research. And now I think it's becoming very, very sophisticated.
And this is also going to be more relevant now since this indictment.
Exactly. So it has decades of experience in investment management sector. They do some, let's say short selling, as they call it, that they'll find an entity with big businesses. Big businesses. They can, in case they can find something negative, it can dent the stocks, and then there is definitely selling and buying of credit and equities. Basically, it employs fundamental analysis to help make financial decisions. So it means that they also profit. Now, Hindenburg report was titled, very interesting title in earlier part of 2023. Adani Group, how the world third richest man is pulling the largest con in corporate history. This appeared on January 2023. So it means that technically he declared Mr. Adani as a con man. In US terms, what is a con man? And then the storm that was kicked up, I think, wiped out about $12 billion in 48 hours. So Adani Group, and I think from the richest man in Asia, he slid down to, I think, down the ladder. Overall worth at that time was $218 billion. And if you look at accounting fraud and stock manipulation over a long period of time, so these were the findings of Hindenburg Group, that this is how basically they have amassed that much wealth. Maybe we will not say that they don't have. They have a lot of, I think, potential to work. They've invested in energy sector, defense sector, and then also overseas. Then, of course, they found that 4 significant government fraud investigations were already happening. And this started from Congress time, and then BJP somehow covered it, totaling an estimated $17 billion in money laundering, theft of taxpayers' cash, and corruption allegations. So, and now if you link it with this report, so corruption is one major.
This is just a small piece of pie.
Yeah, but the kind of impact it has, we'll see it how it has impacted, because they're saying almost 20% of his wealth has been slashed. Then, of course, the members of Adani Group were also, it's not only, let's say, Adani as manager, members like brothers, like in current report, there's a nephew, who has been doing it. So they were working together to set up offshore shell companies in tax haven nations like Mauritius, UAE, then you have Caribbean islands, and fabricating import and export paperwork in an apparent effort to generate fictitious or fraudulent turnover. So they were also showing, and that's how they, basically increase their wealth, and that's how when there's a dent, then it is in billions of dollars also.
Yes.
The gain also in the same. So they have Rajesh Adani, the younger brother, charged by the Directorate of Revenue Intelligence. This was DRI, Indian intelligence, of being a key player in 2004 and 5 diamond trade import. Then you have Vinod Adani, the elder brother of Gautam Adani, had a suspected role in overseeing a network of offshore businesses intended to enable fraud. And there were 38 shell companies, and companies were connected to, they said that all companies, actually, they didn't actually exist. So basically, they were shell companies. There were no workers who were, drawing some pays and the fictitious addresses and phone numbers. And then also, as you mentioned in the introduction, that they changed 5 chief financial officers in 8 years. So it means that generally, a financial officer would stay, in a large conglomerate for even a decade. And I'm sure that Adani, they pick, very bright people. So if you're changing your chief financial officer, so it means that you're not bothered that how it's going to impact, because ultimately the financial officer will come to know about your dark ways of doing it. So that's how they were either shifted or removed. The other thing was that journalists who were investigating Adani Group's malpractices, they were either imprisoned or killed for criticizing India's wealthy business. So this is, I think, very, very unfortunate. So it means that within India, there's a very clear message that Adani Sahab ke against aap baat nahi kar sakte. You can't. And then, of course, those analysts who did it for stock market, one, they were either detained, pushed, or forced to write, positive stories about. So all told, I think This was a sad saga of corporate India. And I'm sure if you look at Ambani's and I'll not say about Tata's, I think they had some morals. But then you have so many other groups. There are also billionaires who have run away, you know, like Nirav Modi's, and
Yes.
probably in UK, there were people who projected to be, diamond, let's say, businessmen and billions of dollars, and somehow Mr. Modi has been protecting it. So all told, I think this is what it is. And then if you look at Security and Exchange Board of India, like in our case, we have SECP, which is a commission, Security Exchange Commission of Pakistan, like US has a Security Exchange Commission of US. But here we have Security and Exchange Board of India. Even the, let's say, who heads the board is manipulated by Adani. And that watchdog is supposed to check all these math practices, because not only basically you are fleecing money from Indian investors, but also people abroad. And then you are denting the reputation of Indian businesses. So I think this is a huge jolt. And somehow,
And obviously, there would be associates interconnected with this. Last time, as you mentioned, that the Hindenburg report caused a lot of stock decline of the Adani and associates. Now we have a US court deciding over it, and they have in fact also issued arrest warrants for Mr. Adani. And this could be very surprising that how he's going to fit up in this, since US is one of the key economic partners of India, and there are so many companies intertwined with the Adani group, like in UAE, in Europe as well. How do you see the last time the Indian media completely downplayed the allegations made by the Hindenburg organization? What now are they going to look for? As for now, what I have witnessed is that the ANI reported Mr. Adani and his group statement after this indictment was 2 hours before coming from the official Adani group. Like ANI basically reported it first. The same statement that came of Mr. Adani.
and who runs ANI? You know it. It's research analysis wing, and then Smita Prakash and our daddy used to run it. And basically, they are part of the same corporate India. Whether they are, if you look at control over media, I think Adani and Ambani now control about 70% of Indian mainstream media, including NDTV shares have been. So who's going to talk against him? That is again one unfortunate. Now come to US, why it becomes very serious. Despite the amount involved is less, apparently it's that they pay $250 million to Indian officials. Now basically you're looking at Adani Green Energy group who wanted to do business, some solar business, but definitely they have floated the stocks on New York Stock Exchange, or let's say technical stocks. So if you project something through bribery, so it means that
it was mainly to do with bribing Indian officials, telling them that you need to give wrong data from India,
exactly,
that to whoever is in the foreign capital market for solar energy, that is made sure to invest inside India, looking at the potential, and what about comes after that. Yeah.
So it means that they were eyeing at earning $2 billion through 220 or $250 million of bribe. So mainly you are bribing the Indian official to present a false data and give, I'm sure, some guarantees, and then affect the, let's say, American investors. So that's where I think FBI came in. If you look at director, in charge, Mr. Danny has said that FBI maintains a steadfast mission to expose all corrupt agreements, especially with international governments, and protect investors from related. So it means it's protecting the American investor. They are very serious. So it means that maybe the amount is less, but its impact, and that's why the impact on Adani Group itself is now, I think today's Bloomberg and later on Reuters is now saying $31 billion have been, swept away within 24 hours. So it means that this is something very, very serious. Now we come to that tweet that you mentioned, that Mr. Adani tweeted to Donald Trump, his friend and Moody's friend, that let's work together and invest. So it means that Adani Group was showing that we can invest $10 billion.
But do you think that Donald Trump, with a very keen eye on US investment in other countries, would be okay with all of this? He's been very open against companies that have actually, damaged the US, or, taken out capital from the US to different areas in the world. And at the end of the day, US didn't get anything out of it. So would he be very glad of this handshake coming from Mr. Adani?
Well, it's more of boot polishing, not handshake, because there were some memes that he was licking Trump's boots, and within few, I would say, days comes this. And now I am sure Indian Gautam media, they are already on it in social media that they'll bring in element of
Well,
sajish.
mainstream media hasn't reported so a lot on it. It was just shucked. By previously, I remember that around 221 different type of news were being portrayed concerning Mr. Adani's wedding and whatsoever, his son's wedding.
Yeah.
So in that,
That was I think that was Mukesh Ambani's.
Mukesh, yeah.
Yeah.
But other than that, they haven't been focused on this, or they're just keeping it under the rug, trying to come up with a point of view, and the government is still very silent on this.
Yeah. Now also let's come to the methodology and what interesting things have come out. For instance, as you mentioned, Gautam Adani himself met with an Indian government official to advance the bribery scheme. Then they were exchanging it through some secure, application was probably WhatsApp, and messages were read by and they were extracted. The funniest part is that one of the guys, Rupesh Agarwal, would make PowerPoint presentation on how to, smartly bribe people, and then share it with, his board of directors or whosoever. There was a gang of, I think, 6-7 people who have been named, like Sagar Adani, the nephew. So they were sharing on PowerPoint. These presentations are now available with the FBI, and I'm sure gradually you'll see these being leaked. So I think that is something interesting, that how bold they are that they are sharing such kind of information, because probably they think this has worked in India and this is going to work in the US also. And definitely there's going to be reaction within Indian media also, the opposition.
So do you think there is some light to India's perspective as well, that all of this won't be happening as long as India was in bed with the United States when it comes to its foreign policy and other things? They said that as long as India is remaining neutral, whether it comes to the Ukrainian war, such news, if had we been very direct against the Russians, these news won't even come up.
I don't know, because if you look at like Hindenburg report, probably had nothing to do with because if you look at Hindenburg report, also covered time from I think right from Adani Group started, establishing offshore companies from 2004 and 5. The report came last year. Maybe Indian media can draw those conclusions, but my point is that this is how the corporate India works. That you show a false or fake, facade. You are, some big gun, and somehow then you start, doing it through do number karwai. I think the important thing is what is the reaction coming from, let's say, the opposition, because we can definitely draw certain.
Mr. Rahul Gandhi has done a presser. In fact, we recently revisited Mr. Kajriwal's statement concerning Mr. Adani as well, that he's going to be the downfall of Mr. Modi.
Now there are interesting things. One is, I think definitely Congress would react, and there's also linked to what is happening in Manipur. Then you have Maharashtra elections taking place, and I think maybe the reports are that it's a very tough competition. Let's see what happens. Now Rahul Gandhi came up with and he has been actually targeting Adani before that also, because Adani was also targeting the Congress or the India alliance. So he said that because Adani has a huge cover in form of the Prime Minister, or in Urdu they say, जो इस तोते में basically Adani वो तोता है जिसमें मोदी की जान है, or let's say Adani is a parrot which basically has life
carries the soul of Mr. Modi.
So he can't touch it because that will be suicide. It's very interesting, and we have an evidence. Now he says that actually through Modi, Adani actually possesses entire India. This is what he mentioned, that he has all the airports, most of them, seaports, businesses, energy, now defense deals, and that is how I think corporate India has.
It's not just US complaining about it, or not just the Indians or the opposition. I've heard that a lot of Kenyans are very much against Mr. Adani as well. They were celebrating this decision.
Yeah, if you look at Kenya, I think we need to do a separate program. Yeah. But there was a scandal of, let's say, Nairobi's main international airport being built by let's say, being improved. This again ran into a couple of billions of dollars. And but the unfortunate part was, and there is a senator, I'm just forgetting his name, Kenya, who actually then dug out the entire story, that how people in Kenya and some of the Indians, including their foreign office, bribed people. And this was to be on a lease till I think 2050, and also had a condition that all airports in Kenya
Their
ultimately
renovation and their
will be done
they will be
by
done by
Adani's.
Adani
So
Groups.
it means that practically Adani's were going to through bribes. So it means that there is here also a link that they do a lot of bribery. So I'm sure Kenyans are going to, and I think we need to do a complete program. What happened to Kenya? They were also trying to get into their energy, I think, sector, because some places have discovered oil and gas. So, but now coming back to what Rahul Gandhi said, now also, old guards like Dr. Subramanian Swamy saying that, this is not only dented the Indian business sector, but also very shameless on part of Moody. And now US is basically disclosed it, so we should take some measures. We know what is happening to Gautam Media, or what Gautam Media is doing to Indian public. I'm sure they'll try to again douse the fire, put the news under the carpet. But I think things are now going to be very, very serious, because they're going to be trial. A trial has already started. I mean, indictment, and then US courts are going to summon Mr. Adani and his group. Is he going to be put on, let's say, red warrants issued for him, that he cannot even travel to Dubai or anywhere? So maybe he has to be arrested and brought to
And
US.
this is going to be leave a big question mark for other investors as well, whether it's international companies that have been linked with the Adani Group. Are they going to keep their business with him, or they are going to exit it out?
Yeah, if you look at last 24 hours, as I mentioned, right now at $34 billion, as we are just reading it. So they are losing like, almost millions of dollars every hour as we talk.
Yeah.
So I'm sure it's going to be a huge jolt, and maybe the Indian stock market it's already under a lot of stress. Like, and there was also news that Adani had sold some bonds and stocks 24 hours before this thing came out. It means that he even profited in the last hour, and people are now crying. So all told, this is a sad story of how corporate India works, how Moody, the 56 inches, and I'm very sorry that in Pakistan, people give example of these businessmen,
Yeah.
fair practices, and this is all I would say. I wash. Basically, it's I would say in Urdu they call it do number business, which they not only do it to exploit the poor Indians, but also people across the world.
Yeah. So that's it for today, folks. Please do leave a like and subscribe our channel. Thank you so much for watching us. Goodbye.